Hello, everyone. It's me, Jason, again. I'm a tutor with Embrace. I do ACT everything, SAT everything. But you've heard me say this a few times, hopefully, by this point. And let's just get started. All right, so just first things first. Does anyone need to share my screen first things first? Does anyone have any question in particular that they would like to go over? Otherwise, I'm just going to start doing my thing where I go through the questions one at a time. We're going to start with the no calc. Question 4. All right, we can start with question 4. All right, so question number 4. In the equation above, P and T are constants. All right, so right off the bat, when I'm looking and I see this form, when I see x plus something, x minus something, I know that's difference of squares. So the middle term is just going to cancel. So we're going to be left with, t squared and p squared x squared. Now it's saying which of the following could be the value of p. Now, let's say you didn't see what I saw. I've been doing this for a while. And yes, okay, we can cover that as well when we're done with this. All right. So like I said, I've been doing this for a while, so I immediately saw it the way I saw it. But like, let's say you didn't see it that way, right? Well, one way that you can always approach these questions if you have no idea what's going on is to just do whatever you think you can do and then see what happens. So the obvious first step here would either be to factor this or FOIL this. I would FOIL this, so you'd end up with p squared x squared plus pxt minus pxt minus t squared, right? Okay, those drop out, and we have p squared x squared minus t squared, right? Well, so this is just like that genre of question that we were talking about last time, where this is just like that genre of question we were talking about last time, where if you have two expressions that are equal and one of them is coefficients, the coefficients attached to each degree of variable, like the sum of the coefficients attached to the square term, have to be equal. So we know that p squared is equal to 4, right? Because the coefficients on both sides attached to the x squared term have to be the same. So p is equal to 2. Boom. Oops. Okay. So next up, one person just wanted to touch base real quick on the difference. One person wanted to touch base real quick on the difference between one solution and infinite solutions. So this is actually, it makes a little bit more sense to review this in the context of not just one solution versus infinite solutions, but the types of solutions you can have for lines. There's only 3 types of solutions you can have for lines. You can have, well, for a system of lines, you can have one solution. You have one solution when the slopes are not the same. Right? If the slopes are not equal, then you're going to have one solution, like you just are. Then you have no solutions. Right? No solutions is when the slopes are the same, but you have a different intercept. right? So like this one crosses here and this one crosses here. If they have the same slope, they'll be parallel. Now, last but not least, there's infinite number of solutions. Infinite solutions are when they are the exact same line. Yeah, it's just like that's when they have the same slope and the same y coordinate. It's the same y-intercept. They are the same exact line twice. Now, how are you actually going to see infinite solutions? Because while infinite solutions aren't the hardest concept in the world, they're never just going to show you the same line twice. Like one thing they might do is 2x plus 4y is equal to 8. And then 4x. Now, this is actually still kind of a simplified version. 4x plus, we'll say py is equal to 16. What value of p gives you an infinite number of solutions? Okay, well, this equation is the same as this. It's just all the things are doubled. So p here, when p is 8, these are the same exact line, and you'll have an infinite number of solutions. That's like kind of how you'll see that come up. They're never just going to flat give you the same line, but they'll give you the same line with a slightly different way of going about it. Do you have any more questions on that? Yusuf? All right, then we're just going to move along. All right, great. So I like to hear. All right, so Sam, we're going to go back to 1 unless anyone has a desire to go over another one. Not Sam. Oh, wow, that was wrong. Salim wants to purchase tickets from a vendor to watch a tennis match. The vendor charges a one-time fee for the processing of the purchase of the tickets. All right, so this is, I can already tell, this is a modeling reality question. You know, real world equations for all those times in your life where you're going to turn, you know, when you're going to turn things into a math problem. The equation t is equal to 15n plus 12 represents the total amount t in dollars Sam will pay for n tickets. What does 12 represent? Okay, so I think we've gone over this quite a few times, which we should have because they ask this question a whole bunch. But in that y is equal to mx plus b form, here's what it is. B, that is our initial value. That is our value at time 0 or ticket 0, right? So here, since this is equal to tickets, 12 represents at ticket number 0 how much money you owe. So technically it isn't ticket 0 because, like, you know, it breaks a little bit because, like, you know, you actually have to buy a ticket. They can't just charge you for not doing that. But as soon as you buy the first ticket, it's an additional 12. So effectively 12 is 0, right? So that would be the service fee. Now, and also, I'm going to repeat this because I really want you guys to get this down. The way I want you to think about M is with this sentence. M is the change in, and then literally whatever y is, per 1, then read in whatever x is. So what does that mean? Here, 15 is the change in dollars per 1 ticket, right? I found if you conceptualize it that way in words, the harder versions of this get a heck of a lot easier. All right, I am going to fix something on my display. All right, number 2. A gardener buys 2 kinds of fertilizer. Fertilizer A contains 60% filler materials by weight. Fertilizer B contains 40% fertilizer materials by weight. Okay, so these are by weight. Together, The fertilizers bought by the gardener contain a total of 240 pounds of filler materials. Which equation models the relationship where X is equal to the number of pounds of fertilizer A and Y is the pounds of fertilizer B, right? So what is going on here is just, right, we have to figure out which one of these accurately reflects it, right? So if, again, let's say we're starting on the basis of, I have absolutely no idea what's happening. Well, we know, so it's asking us which equation represents the pounds of fertilizer A and Y is the pounds of fertilizer B. Okay. All right, so we know first thing off the bat, we know we can get rid of C and D. The reason why we know we can get rid of C and D is these amounts are percentages. The numbers should be getting lower, not higher, right? These would ramp it up. These would imply somehow that there is more filler than the original material. So those are dead to us, right? Now, which equation models the relationship where X is the number of pounds of fertilizer A and Y is the number of pounds of fertilizer B? All right, well, the 0.6 goes with A, the 0.4 goes with B, making our answer B. Boom roasted. All right, what is the sum of those complex numbers? All right, so when you're dealing with complex numbers, all right, this is a very typical early question for dealing with complex numbers. If you're adding them, you just add the similar terms, right? So this is going to be 2 plus 4, and it's also going to be 3i plus 8i. So 6 plus 11i. Yep, that's it. Now, this is, like I said, the easier version. I want you guys to take a second. We've covered the harder version of this question. I want you to take a second and see if you remember how to do the harder version. And then I'm going to tell you, but like, see if you can remember. By the way, the harder version being if what they give you looks like this. That's what I mean, solving this one. All right. Hopefully, what you came up with is the way you solve this one is you multiply the numerator and the denominator by the conjugate. So it would be 4 minus 8i times 4 minus 8i. Now, why does this work? Well, this works because this is how you cancel out the I term in the bottom. You're going to get 32 plus 32i and minus 32i. Those will cancel. And then you'll get 8 times -8, negative 64 times I, positive 64, right? So you'll get a whole number in the denominator, and that's like why that works in terms of solving. You can also do this on your calculator, but I'm not even going to show you because I really don't recommend it. Cannot stress enough how much I don't recommend. Oh no, this is the no calc section. You can't even do it on your calculator. I'm a liar. All right, number 5. Which of the following is the graph of the equation y is equal to 2x minus 5 in the xy plane? All right, so the slope is 2. The y-intercept is -5, and it is, so first off, it's a positive slope. You're gone. It's going to have a negative intercept. So you both are gone, and D is what's left, right? Both of these have a positive y-intercept. And then this one, while having the correct y-intercept, has a negative slope. So D is our only possible answer. Boom. All right, so this is giving us two values for, all right, so if x is 2/3 y and y is equal to 18, what is the value of 2x minus 3? So one, we just have to solve this pretty straightforward. This is technically a system. We have to solve this pretty straightforward system. And then we have to remember more work is coming, right? So step one, x is equal to, all right, 2 times 18 is 36 divided by 2, divided by 3 rather, which is 13, right? So now we know x is equal to 13. So 2 times 13 is 26. Did I just derp on math? No. All right, so that is going to be 13, then 2x minus 3 is going to be 13 times 2 minus 3. What did I do? Oh, that's 12. There we go. 24 minus 3 is equal to 21, which is our answer. There we go. By the way, what I just did is, while not great, a teachable moment. If you ever just get the wrong answer, like I thought when I put 13, I kept getting 23. Close isn't good enough. You've done something wrong if you get the wrong answer. Don't just go, I think this one's close enough. Stop and figure out what you did before moving on, because we want you to get all of these correct. All right. A bricklayer uses the formula N is equal to 7LH to estimate the number of bricks N needed to build a wall that is L feet long and H feet height. Which of the following correctly expresses L in terms of N and H? All right, so sometimes people get lost in the verbiage on these questions, but all this is, when it says L in terms of N and H, all this is saying is, please rearrange the equation so we're solving for L. So you just do the steps you would normally do if there was like real numbers there, and you solve it that way. So the original equation was N is equal to 7LH. Now what we want to do is we want to get, I'm drawing it as a capital L just because that is going to be way easier for me to write. So what I want to do is I want to get I want to get L by itself. Okay, well, all I have to do is divide both sides by 7H, right? Those cancel, and then we have L is equal to N over 7H, which is C. Straightforward enough? Okay, we're on a roll. All right, so now in 8, we have a very weird XY chart. What this means basically is represents 2 lines. Here are the X values, here are the Y values here's the corresponding Y values for one line, and here are the corresponding values for a separate line. That's in effect what's going on. The table above shows some values of the functions W and T. And remember, a function's just, well, for the purposes of the SAT, it's usually just a line. It could also be a parabola. Technically, it's any model, but for the purposes of this, it's a line. For which of the following values of X is W of X plus T of X equal to X? So basically, this is asking you, where do we add the Y values, right? Because all W of X and T of X mean is Y for a given X. So it's asking, where do the Y values add up to equal X, right? Okay, well, if X is 1, well, then that's -3 plus -1, -4. That does not work. If X is 2, that's 3 plus -1, which is 2, which is equal to our X value. Our answer is B. Boom. Does anyone have any questions? I feel like I'm going fast. Does anyone have any questions on anything we've covered? All right, if not, then moving on. All right, so 9. 9 is asking what's the value of x. The path of least resistance on this is to stop these from being radicals right off the bat. Oop. Oh, thank you, Yusuf. You want to stop these from being radicals right off the bat, right? So you're going to have 8 is equal to 3 plus the square root of x. Right? So then the square root of x is equal to 5. X is equal to 25. Boom. Right? Very straightforward. All you have to do is follow the math. Where sometimes people get themselves into trouble is like they try to off the bat. Here's how you can get yourself into trouble for this. And if you got it wrong, here is how you probably did it. You probably did this. Right? You tried to square both sides at the outset. Well, these are added, so you would actually have to FOIL it if you didn't do all of that other work first. You'd end up with, one of the terms you'd end up with would be 2 root 9x, which is, not a helpful term to end up with. Moving right along. Jamie is preparing for a bicycle race. His goal is to bicycle an average of at least 280 meters, 280 miles, yeah, 280 meters. That's a real short, it's a real short workout. His goal is to bicycle an average of at least 280 miles per week for 4 weeks. He bicycled 240 miles the first week, and 310 miles the second week, and 320 miles the third week. Which inequality can be used to represent the number of miles Jamie could bicycle on the 4th week to reach his goal? All right, so really, realistically, if we haven't covered an average question before, our battle cry is you get averages from totals, not from averages. Virtually every single average question involves you taking averages, converting them into totals, and then figuring out like how many points you need. So for example, what's going on here in A, like let's say you picked A, well then you're just getting the average of these 3 and adding on some value of x, right? If you do this, like the last week is going to look like you need, for this one, it might even look like you need negative miles. Or very minimum, you're gonna need like 20 miles, right? That's not how it works. We want this to be our answer. So if you take a look here, this is where we convert. So that 4 times 280, that is us converting our average miles, right, for the 4 weeks into a total amount of miles that we can work with, right? This is gonna be, so basically, in order to bike an average of 280 miles a week, we need to bike 4 times 280 miles. Now that we have a total there, well, we can just subtract those, right? Being the miles we did, and what we'd be left with is how many miles we have left to go in order to have achieved the amount of miles we needed for the week. Everyone clear on that? Anyone have any questions? All right. So, but by the way, your battle cry being averages from totals, not averages from averages, is very, very true. That's like almost all of the average questions where they're testing averages and not part of mean, median, mode, and range. But like all the average questions, like that's what you're doing. All right. Question number 11. The vertex of the parabola in the xy plane above is 0c. Which of the following is true about the parabola with the equation y is equal to negative a times x minus b squared plus c? All right, so we are going to do a little parabola review. Is this really the first time we've gotten to a parabola? All right, whatever. We're gonna do a little bit of just general parabola review, just for the different forms, because you do need to know them. Now, they test them less heavily now than they used to. They used to test them like a lot. Now they've taken their foot off the pedal in favor of lines, but it's still important that you know how to do this. So there's three forms of the parabola. We'll start with this because this is the actual question. This is what's known as vertex form. Why is it known as vertex form? Because it's the one where you can literally glance at and see the vertex. This is y is equal to plus or minus a times x minus h squared plus k, right? Y is equal to plus or minus a times x minus h squared plus k. Now, in this, here's what each part represents. HK, that's the vertex. A is the stretch or shrink. Now, like, you don't need to know exactly what to do with this, but if A is greater than 1 or less than -1, it gets skinny. If A is between 1 and -1, it gets fat. And then plus or minus dictates whether or not it opens up or it opens down. Now, before I just get into general, here's the other two forms of the parabola, we're actually going to solve this problem because that's probably what makes the most sense in this order. So now here, which of the following is true? Well, all right, so now here's kind of something interesting they did. Well, so first of all, it tells us that the vertex is 0, c, right? Well, if the vertex is 0, c, right, so all right, so the reason why they're giving us this information from the original parabola is technically c could be a negative value and we wouldn't know, right? By putting it here on the graph, it is in fact telling us that c is a positive number. Same with a. A could technically be a negative number if it was just like, if there was no graph and all we were looking at is this, A could technically be a negative number and so could C. They're just constants. But by giving us that graph, they identify it. Now, if that sounds really picky to you, I agree, but what I'm describing is a literal question. There was one question where you had to understand that like just because it said A didn't mean it was positive. Now, because in that particular case, A was negative, so you had to do negative A to flip it up the other way. But that is not an issue here. Now, I understand what I just said was probably very confusing. Does anyone have any questions on that combination of words I just let out of my mouth? All right, then. So now we know A is positive and we know C is positive, right? Now it's asking us which of the following is true about y is equal to negative A times x minus b squared plus c, right? So here's what we know. Well, we know A is a positive value. So negative A will be a negative value. If you have a negative A, it opens down. That is gone. And that is gone, right? Now, here's the other thing here. So do you see here how it's x minus h? Well, if it's x minus h and h is positive, like if you add x minus 3, the value is 3, not -3, because the minus, I like the way I conceptualize it is the minus is the natural form. X minus 3 would mean it would be at the coordinate, the x coordinate is at positive 3. If you add x plus 3, then it shifts to the left and you'd have the x value at -3. So if it's minus b plus c, it's just going to be b. Right? It's at BC and it opens down. Boom roasted. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a little time and we're going to review the information for the standard form of the parabola. Because the standard form of the parabola is the one you're going to run into most. That is this ax squared plus bx plus c form, right? Now, and typically when you're dealing with it, it will be equal to 0. Now, there is a bunch of information you can glean just by glancing at this form, right? Now, it's not going to show you the x-intercepts, and it's not going to show you the, like there's the x-intercept form where you can immediately see the x-intercepts, there's the vertex form where you can immediately see the vertex. The information here is a little bit more buried, but there's still plenty of information to be had. For example, C is the y-intercept, because that is the value, right? Like C is the y-intercept, right? Because think about it. All right, well, when x is 0, it's just C. C is what's left. Y would be equal to C. Negative b over 2a, that is the x coordinate of the vertex, right? Negative b over 2a. You don't need to factor it out to figure out what the x coordinate of the vertex is. It's just negative b over 2a. Now, the way you would finish solving for the vertex is you'd take that value, plug it back into x, and it would spit out y. Actually, let's just make that y for the purposes of right now. All right, negative b over a is the sum of the roots. And what do I mean by sum of the roots? So the roots, zeros, x-intercepts, all of these mean the same thing when you're dealing with like a single parabola. So let's say our parabola crossed here, right? So that's 1 and that's 3. If you looked at standard form and you did negative b divided by a, you would get 4. Right? You would just get what you got when the x-intercepts were added together. All right? And then C over A, that is the product of the roots. Now, you never need to know these. It can make your life very easy if you know them, because they literally have asked questions like, what's the sum of the roots? And if you have this memorized, that becomes a 2-second question. But you never need to know these, because let's say you've forgotten it. Well, you can just solve this using product sum, complete the square, or quadratic equation, and then manually add them together. It takes a lot longer, but you will get the right answer. And I encourage you to do so. Rather, if you forget, I encourage you to do so. Like, if you can't remember, oh no, which one's negative b over a and which one's c over a, please just factor them and then do it that way. All right? All right, great. Now we're going to move on to... we're making good time today. 12. Okay. There's 2 ways of doing 12. One involves synthetic division. Please don't do it that way. The way I want you to do this is, do you see how it says which of the following is equivalent, and then there's variables in the question and variables in the answer choice? This is one of those questions where you can literally just pick a value, any value except for 0 or 1, for x, and then just, you'll get some answer, and then you take that answer, and you take the original number and you plug it in here, and the one that gives you the same answer is correct. So let me show you that in motion. So let's say x is 2. So 4 times 2 squared would be 4, plus 6 times 2, divided by 8 plus 2. Great. So then we have 16 plus 12, divided by 10, 28 tenths, right? All right, so we have 28 tenths. well, these will not suddenly become fractions, so they're gone, right? And so this is more than 2, right? Well, we can also get rid of C because this will be less than 2, right? Now, this one, it just so happens you don't even need to plug them in because we know we needed fraction that's greater than 2, and D is the only one to do it because it would be 2 plus 1 minus some value. But again, for the purposes of illustration, this would become 2 plus 1, so 3, minus 2/10, right? Well, what's another way of saying 3/10? 30/10 minus 2/10 is equal to 28/10, which is them being equivalent. All right. Anyone have any questions on that? By the way, please, please, please know this strategy. It can take very hard questions and make them very, very easy. Yeah, like it can take time sink questions that you're not going to get right and just make them very easy. All right, 13. In the equation above, t is a constant. If the equation has no real solutions, which of the following could be the value of t? All right, so this is saying no solutions. As soon as you hit a point where you have a parabola, and it's asking you not what are the solutions, but how many solutions do we have, we are in discriminant land. So if you remember the quadratic equation, please remember the quadratic equation. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, the whole thing over 2a, right? B squared minus 4ac is what's known as the discriminant. It will let you know how many real solutions there are. So, because think about it like this. Let's say, all right, negative b divided by 2a gave you like 3, right? Well, if b squared minus 4ac is a positive number, well, then it's going to be like 3 plus or minus 1. We'll get 2 solutions, right? If b squared minus 4ac is 0, well, okay, well, then we have 3 plus 0. The only answer is 3. And if b squared minus 4ac is negative, well, then we're getting like 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 2, which means it has no real solutions. Like the graph of that would look like this, right? It just wouldn't hit. Now, I'm going to say that a little bit more systemized. I just wanted to give you guys the idea of what was happening there. So if this is greater than 0, two solutions. Equal to 0, one solution. Negative, no solutions. All right, that's how this one works. And again, how do you know you're dealing with that issue? It's asking me how many solutions, not what are the solutions. So let's take this and shove it into standard form. So then we'd have 2x squared minus 4x minus t is equal to 0, right? So now we apply our b squared minus 4 times a times c. Now here, it's telling us there is no solutions. So we're looking for the value here for t that gives us negative b squared minus 4ac, right? So b squared would be 16 minus 4 times 2 times, now here's where it gets a little tricky, it's times negative t, right? So If it's times negative t, let's just simplify. 16 minus negative 8t, right? Well, if t is a positive number, right? Well, then it's minus a negative number, which means it's positive. So the number is in fact going up. So t has to be a negative to flip it back around. Now, if t is 1, well, then we have 16 minus 8, right? That's not going to get us negative. However, 16 minus negative 8 times negative 3, which is to say 16 minus 24. Okay, well, that is equal to negative 8, which means no solutions. Woo. All right, does anyone have any questions on that? Now, this question does not come up very often, but it does come up from time to time. All right, 15 has a cute trick involved. This is what I like to do with these. All right, well, we know we're going to FOIL this out, right? Well, when we FOIL it out, we can immediately see what the A term and the C term is going to be, right? The middle term involves us multiplying different things and adding them, but we know the A term is going to be A squared. There's going to be some middle term, and then it's going to be C squared, which is B squared. And when we're doing this, we have to distribute that. So it's going to be B squared over 4. Well, the only one that works for, well, okay, so that gets rid of C and that gets rid of A. Now, since it's A plus something squared, we will have a middle term. B is gone. It's just D. All right. So I'm just skipping this one just so we can get to, I realize we never get to the, we never get to these. All right, so I remember someone from last week wanting to talk about similar triangles, so we'll start at the similar triangle question. By the way, so before I do that, is there any question here in particular someone would like to go over 15 through 20? All right, then in that case, I'm just going to go over this. So whenever you see this or this, I can guarantee you it's a similar triangle question. If you see two triangles like intersect at a vertex, or one literally drawn inside of the other, it is going to be a similar triangle question. So right now I look at that and I see similar triangles. So now here is what you need to remember about similar triangles. The angles are congruent, but the sides are proportional, right? So the ratio of the sides between the big and the ratio of the sides, the similar sides, is what you need to solve this. Now, if we take the smaller triangle, the ratio of the smaller triangle is 1 to 3. The bigger triangle, because we can see this is 6 and that's 18, and those are the same, those are the side across from the same angle. So for this, the corresponding side is going to be 3 times as big, right? But now what is it asking us? It's asking us what is CE. Well, in order to know what CE is, we have to know what CD is, right? Now, 2 ways you can do this. One, you can know your special right triangles by sides. This is a 3, 4, 5 triangle, right? 3, 4, 5 triangle is one of your special right triangles by sides. Now, I know this says 6, 8, but since it's just ratios, this actually works the whole way up. It's also 6, 8, 10. It's also 9, 12, 15, so on and so forth. Alternatively, Pythagorean theorem. 6 squared is 36, 8 squared is 64, a square root of 100 is 10, right? Both of those ways can get there. So we know that this is 10. Now, it's asking us what's CE, right? Well, if this is 10, and the proportion is that it's going to be 3 times as great, CE will be 30. Now, though, there is a trick they can ask you, and they have asked a number of times. Sometimes, if they're trying to be a little bit more obnoxious, they will ask you what DE is, right? If they're asking you what DE is, you have another step. After you solve for CE, you would need to subtract that 10 that was CD out. They have done that exact trick multiple times, so it's very important that you are on the lookout for it. All right, that is the no calc section. We're going to start the calc section in just 1 sec. Ooh, excuse me. Just 1 second. But before we move on, does anyone have any questions? Okay, I will be back in 1 moment. And I'm back. Did you miss me? All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start going through this section. Again, if anyone has any question in particular they would like to go over, please drop it in the chat. So that way I can make sure I address it. Or alternatively, any concept they would like to go over so I can address it. Also, as a general thing, so if you guys want to practice a concept, I have no problem practicing a concept with you. But what I'm going to need you to do is I'm going to need you to email it to me before the class starts so I can assemble some practice problems and not just like look like I'm scrambling on the fly to do them. So just you know, for you guys, if you have like, oh, Jason, I have no idea what's happening with the like, you know, that like weird shape one from the last, that question. You know, that I have no idea what's going on with that, and you want extra practice, I can assemble that for you, but I need to know in advance. All right, so, but if no one has anything in particular they would like to go over, we'll just start running through them. All right, question number 1, just polynomial subtraction. Here is the trick. The only way, what you need to do is combining like terms, but the only way you guys ever get this wrong is, do you see how the minus is there outside of the brackets? Okay, well then you need to flip every signal inside the brackets, every sign inside the brackets. So this becomes 2x squared minus 4, right? Then it becomes, so minus negative 3x squared, so that's plus 3x squared, minus 2x plus 7. You need to flip all the signs. So then you get 5x squared minus 2x plus 3. A is the answer. Woo! All right. My clients have said I am relentlessly positive. I'm not sure if that's an accusation or a compliment. All right, question number 2. The graph above shows the positions of Paul and Mark during a race. Paul and Mark each ran at a constant rate, right? So what does a constant rate mean? Well, here these are obviously lines, but whenever you see constant rate, that means it's a line. Mark was given a head start to shorten the distance he needs to run, right? Okay, well, that is represented by that y value, right? His head start means he started at like 18 miles, right? Because each one of the graph units is different. Paul finished the race in 6 seconds, and Mark finished the race in 10 seconds. According to the graph, Mark was given a head start of how many yards? Oh, okay. So that's just asking you what the y value is, right? Now, one thing you have to pay attention to, two things. One, you have to pay attention to what the actual units are, and two, now it doesn't come up in this one, but they love playing this game where you can't count slopes because the units on the different axes are different. But here, each box represents 6. So Mark started at 18. Yeah, you didn't even need to know the speeds. They just threw them in there as red herrings. And for those of you who don't know, and that sounded exceptionally weird, a red herring is a term in typically mysteries to explain something thrown in to try and like trick you. I have no idea why it's called a red herring. All right, question number 3. Snow fell, then stopped for a time. All right, so when the snow began to fall again, it fell at a faster rate than it had initially. Assuming none of the snow melted, which of the following could model the accumulation of the snow? I like to just graph these before, right? All right, snow fell, then it stopped falling, and then it fell faster. This is roughly what this is going to look like, right? Like fell faster means steeper slope. Oh, cool, there we are. That's the one that matches the graph I just drew. So here, this would be the faster part. Here, we have snow disappearing, and here it would be all at the same time, and there would be no break. So A is the answer. Does anyone have any questions on anything? Comments, concerns, criticisms, rebukes, rebuttals, retorts? All right, question number 4. A website hosting service charges businesses a one-time setup fee of $350. Okay, one-time setup fee, that is our B value, plus D dollars each month. Okay, D is our slope. So this is our line. Y is equal to dx plus 350. And D represents the change in dollars per month. If the business owner paid $1,010 for the first 12 months, including the setup fee, what is the value of D? All right, well, so paid this, that would be the total price, right? And it's telling us how many months. So let's just start plugging things in. 110 is equal to 12D plus 350. Right? Now, I like to draw it out, even though I like to write it out. So then 110 minus 350 is going to be 660. Divide both sides by 12. So that is equal to 55. So that is our answer. By the way, so I recommend like, you know, obviously use your calculator. Like, don't like sit there trying to divide 660 by 12 using long division, but I like to write the steps out on the page. It helps you keep focus. Let's say you get something wrong. It helps you find a mistake. It does not take all that long to do. It just keeps things neater, and it stops you from making like sloppy mistakes. I don't like sloppy mistakes. I always preferred, we won't get into the term I use. All right, 15. And by 15, I mean 5. Which of the following inequalities is equivalent to the inequality above? All right, so it's asking which is equivalent. Now, here, yes, you could plug in the numbers, but like, don't. That would be a mess. Instead, well, all right, so you see how all of these are divisible by 3? Let's just divide them by 3. 2x minus 3y is greater than 4. Oh, conveniently, that's one of our answers, and we're done. This falls in. Now, how would you know to do that? Like, I don't know. Just like that one falls into the category of do whatever's the most obvious. right? Like, just like, oh, okay, well, everything there is divisible by 3. Let me divide by 3 and see what happens. Now, one thing with this that you do want to be, it is not relevant to this question. It is relevant to harder questions, and I'm going to teach it to you now that we're here. So let's say we had negative 6x is less than 4, right? Okay, well, if we're trying to solve for x, when we divide both sides by a negative number, the sign flips. So that would be x is, now the sign flips, greater than negative 4/6, right? So just remember, if you are dividing an inequality by a negative number, the direction of the sign changes. Why did I go over it in that? It's not tested all that often. It's possible we would never run into one, but they definitely have and could test it. All right. Question number 6. The table above shows a summary of 1,200 responses to a survey question. Based on the table, how many of those surveyed get most of their medical information from either a doctor or the internet? All right, so it's asking how many of those surveyed, all right? So now the survey here, we do want to check in. So this is about most, right? It does say where they get most of their information. So it's 63% is from a doctor, 13% is from the internet. So 76% of people get it from one, right? Now we know there's 1,200 responses. So 1,200 times 0.76. That is 912. So C is our answer. Boom. All right. Question number 7 is a survey question. This is going, I went over this question with someone yesterday. Realistically, a lot of these, like if they're just asking you what is true, like ask yourself, like, how did they screw this up, right? Most of these questions come down to this. You are only allowed to draw conclusions from the group that you selected people from at random. And it has to be at random, right? So like if I pulled firefighters, I could only apply that conclusion to what firefighters think. If I surveyed firefighters at one particular station, all I could apply that to is what the firefighters at that particular station think. You can only generalize from the group you picked. Like, for example, if you poll middle schoolers at, Mount Pleasant Middle School, the middle school I went to, you couldn't apply it to the other middle schools in the area. You couldn't even apply it to the other middle school in my town. You could only apply it to Mount Pleasant Middle School. And this is the concept that they are getting at a lot of the time. And by the way, volunteer surveys are awful because you are further narrowing the pool to the type of person who would go out of their way to respond to a survey, right? Okay. Yeah, and that is a very special group of people who are like, they've put up a survey on the website. Let me go to the website. All right, so the actual question. The members of a city council wanted to assess the opinions of all city residents about converting an open field into a dog park. The council surveyed a sample of 500 city residents who own dogs. The survey showed that the majority of those samples were in favor of a dog park. Which of the following is true of the city council's survey? So let's take a look at these one at a time. It showed that the majority of city residents are favored in a dog park. Now, let me ask you this. Did we randomly sample city residents? No, we did not, because this entire study was conducted in one specific about one group of people. We only surveyed people who own dogs, right? Okay, well, clearly the people who own dogs are going to probably have a different opinion than the people who don't own dogs about spending taxpayer money on a dog park. Now, they made this one like obviously problematic. However, honestly, it's still a problem if they only surveyed people at the fire station or if they only surveyed children, right? Like you still couldn't, but like surveying dog owners is particularly egregious. But like really, like you can't say anything about the town unless you are randomly selecting people from the town and not a subgroup. The survey sample should have included more residents who are dog owners. No, no. The survey sample should have consisted entirely of residents who do not own dogs. Like, no, that's that. And then you just have the opposite problem, right? Then it's like, okay, well, we're still not randomly selecting. D, the survey is biased because it is not representative of all city residents. That is correct. Boom. All right. Does everyone understand everything we've talked about so far? All right, great. I'm going to assume all of you are going to get 800s on this section, so that makes me happy. So the table above shows the flavors of ice cream and the toppings chosen by people at a party. Each person chose one flavor of ice cream and one topping. Of the people who chose vanilla ice cream. Now, all right, so here's what you need to remember about these. Is over of, right? This is going to ask us, of the people who chose vanilla ice cream, what fraction chose hot fudge? This is what you need to remember in these, like, please figure me out a percentage questions or a fraction questions. The of is our definition of what group we care about, right? So here it says of people who chose vanilla. Ooh, excuse me. Of people who chose vanilla ice cream, right? Okay, well, all we care about is these people, right? We're not even considering the people who chose chocolate. We are just looking at the 13 people who chose vanilla. So it's going to be over 13. Now it's asking us of them who also chose hot fudge, right? So that is that. It's the intersection of vanilla and hot fudge. So that is going to be D, 8 over 13. Woo. All right, we're going to skip ahead a little bit just so we get more of a mix of easier and harder questions. So we're just going to skip to 15, unless someone has a particular question they want to go over. If anyone has a particular question they want to go over between 9 and 14, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to skip to 15. All right, excellent. A whole bunch of 800 test takers. All right, so we have an XY chart. Which of the following relates X to Y in the values of the tables above, right? So, all right, well, when I look at this, it's asking what's the relationship. Now, if you look at the answer choices, these are geometric growth and these are linear growth. All right, well, how do we tell which one it is? All right, well, let's just start to see if we have a constant change or a exponential change. All right, so the difference between that and that is 14. And the distance between that and that is 14. Well, no, 14 fourths, not 14, 14 fourths. All right, well, so we know the slope is 14 fourths, and a constant change means it's a line. They are dead to us. All right, 14 fourths reduces to 7 halves. The answer is D. Woo! Moving on. All right, we have another similar triangle question. Now, the way you can tell, like I just looked at this and went ratios, triangles, great, similar triangle. Now, though, the way you would actually tell, though, is, there's 180 degrees in a triangle. So 180 minus 90 minus 32 is going to be 58. Yeah, so that's going to be 58. So we know that's 58. Oh, okay, well, we see the 58 there as well. We know these are similar, right? So remember, with similar triangles, the angles are the same, the sides are proportional. So now it's asking us which of the following is the ratio of BC to AB. So it's asking the ratio of this side to this side, and it's asking it about the other triangle, right? So now some people like to do this thing where it's like they see the math in their head and they're like flipping the shape. Don't do that. You have a pencil, you have paper. Just redraw this triangle so the angles are in the same place, right? So let's just redraw this one. Okay, well then that would be, it would look like this, right? So if 58 is up there, then that would be D, then that would be E, and that would be, the 90 degrees would be F, right? All right, so what is BC to AB? That is, oh my God, those are a mess. That's D and that's F. That would be DF to ED. Or in this particular case, DF to DE, which is the same exact thing. So our answer is B. Flipping that drawing just makes it very, very straightforward. You have a pencil, you have a paper, you do not get style points for handing in a clean test booklet. Like, so pre-COVID, and I guess I'll start doing it again soon, but pre-COVID, I used to show up once a year to take the SAT, once a year to take an ACT. You know, the joke among my friends was, oh, we hope Jason gets into a good college, you know, because I'm playing, 34-year-old in the test center. My test booklets, I obviously, I'm here teaching you, I do very, very well on these. My test booklets are a disaster. They're like falling apart when I give them back. I draw all of this out. Please do not think you're better than that. You're not. Moving right along. I can address that with you later. All right, so 17, 18, 19. I hate these questions. These questions are so obnoxious, but I'm assuming that means you guys probably got them wrong, so let's actually go over them. Which of the following expresses the riser height in terms of the tread depth? So, right, so it gives us this equation here, right? So all this is asking us to do is solve for h. That's it, right? Express height in terms of depth. So 2h plus d is equal to 25. 2h is equal to 25 minus d. H is equal to, now they have them expressed here in terms of 1/2 rather than over 2. It's the same thing. 1/2 times 25 minus d. That is B. Huzzah. All right. Some building codes require that for indoor stairways, the tread depth must be at least 9 inches and the riser height must be at least 5 inches. According to the riser tread formula, which of the following inequalities represents the set of all possible values for the riser height that meets this code requirement, right? Okay, well, the riser height has to be at least 5. Go away. And if there is a definition on tread depth, right? Like, well, then it can't be, you can't have an infinite height. You are gone. So now let's actually take a look at the two plausible answers. So do you see how the tread depth must be at least 9 inches? Well, if the tread depth is at least 9 inches, let's see what the riser height is when the tread depth is 9 inches. So when the tread depth is 9 inches, we have 2h is equal to 9 is equal to 25. Not equal to 9. 2h minus 9 is equal to 25. 2h is equal to 16. H is equal to 8. So it has to be between 5 and 8. There we go. Boom roasted. All right, 19. Now, here is the one. Show of hands. Who got this question wrong? You can type it in the chat. You can send it anonymously to me. I'm just curious. All right. You know what? Actually, I'm not going to ask you guys to do that. My experience, the majority of people who do this question get it wrong. It's really obnoxious. So an architect wants to use the riser tread formula to design a stairway with a total rise of 9 feet, a riser height between 7 and 8 inches, and an odd number of steps. Given the constraints, which of the following must be the tread depth? Okay, so we have a few things going on. But first, if we take a look at this equation, right? This is in inches. Here we have feet and we have inches, right? So if we're drawing our riser, we have to conceive of the total height in feet, right? So, or rather in inches. So 9 feet, we do 9 times 12, which gives us 108 inches. So we have 108 inches, which is our total height. Now it says it wants a riser height between 7 and 8 inches, but that also has an odd number of steps, right? So now what we need to do here is we kind of just start like guessing how many steps we have. It's not elegant, but it'll get you there. So what is an odd, so do you see how, and by the way, it says it has a total height of 9 feet and a riser, it has a riser height of between 7 and 8 inches, right? Well, so we have an odd number of steps, so an odd number of riser heights, and it splits it up between 7 and 8, right? Let's just start guessing numbers. I know that's like not like a satisfying way of answering it, but it is the way you actually do this question. So if we had 11 steps, what would the riser height be? Right? If we broke that 108 into 11 steps, the riser height would be 9.818 per step. We need more than 11 steps. Let's see what happens if we do 13 steps. Nope, we're still too high. At 13 steps, it is 8.31. Let's see with 15 steps. All right, at 15 steps, we have 7.2 feet per 7.2 inches per step. Great. Okay. Now, if you see 7.2 is there, we are on the right track. Now, it is a trap answer because it's trying to get, it's asking us what the depth must be. But, and by the way, if you shot to 17, it would go below that. You can only have 15 steps. That's the only way this works with an odd number of steps. So with an odd number of steps, right? So, well, now we know we have 15 steps, and the 7.2 represents the height, right? So now we go back to our formula. 2 times 7.2 plus d is equal to 25. 25 minus 14.4 is equal to 10.6. 10.6 is our answer. Boom. Yeah, it's kind of a gross question, and but the reason why it's gross is it's not like any part of that's so hard. It's just your brain doesn't immediately go to, let me just start guessing how many steps there are. That's like not a satisfying way of doing an important standardized test. I know. But, you know, by hook or by crook, well, you know, it doesn't matter how you get the answer right, so long as you get the answer right in a way that is replicable. All right, 20. What is the sum of the solutions? Okay, so the sum of the solutions. This is the x-intercept form of a parabola. So, you know, that's going to be x minus x int 1 times x minus x int 2, right? Plus or minus a, right? So this is the x-intercept number 1. This is x-intercept number 2. Those are also known as solutions and roots and zeros. Right, now note the form is supposed to be minus. So here where it says x minus 6, the solution is positive 6. Here where it says x plus 0.7, the solution is negative 0.7. Right? Plus or minus is up, down. A is stretch or shrink. So here our solutions are 6 plus negative 0.7. 5.3 is the sum of the solutions. Now, by the way, if I had factored this out and divided and done that negative b over a, I would have gotten the same thing. But like, I mean, don't do that, but just trust me that that would work out the same. All right. A study was done on the weights of different types of fish in a pond. A random sample of fish were caught and marked in order to ensure that none were weighed more than once. The sample contained 150 largemouth bass, of which 30% weighed more than 2 pounds. Which of the following conclusions is best supported by the data? All right, so it's an entirely random sample of fish, right? Now, within that sample, though, there's 150 largemouth bass, and we isolated the largemouth bass and then said 30% weighed more than 2 pounds. So now, despite the fact that we randomly sampled everything, this conclusion is drawn only from the largemouth bass. So that means we could only apply that to the largemouth bass. So probably what we're looking for here is that we can know that 30% of the largemouth bass weighed more than 2 pounds. So let's look for that. The majority of all fish was less than 2 pounds. No, the majority of largemouth bass was less than 2 pounds. We do not know anything about the rest of the fish. And please do not I understand that a lot of you probably know how big largemouth bass are vis-a-vis other fish. Do not draw that knowledge into this question. Do not bring in outside knowledge to this type of thing. The average weight of all fish in the pond is approximately 2 pounds. That makes no sense whatsoever. Approximately 30% of all fish. Again, it's not all fish. It's just largemouth bass. Approximately 30% of, there we go, all largemouth bass weigh more than 2 pounds. That is the conclusion that we are allowed to draw. Excellent. 22. All right, 22 is a mean, median, mode, range question. I mean, well, specifically this one's median, but I consider all of those questions kind of jumbled together. So now here's what's going on with this. Please, 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 whenever you get a median question, do not just go, oh, like it's going to be the value in the middle. That is how you get these questions wrong. Do you see how this is frequency? Frequency is necessary for median, because median is when you take all of the values in a row, right? And when you take all of the values in a row and you find the one in the middle, and that accounts for frequency. So what do I mean by that? So we are dealing with 21 states, right? By the way, so the quick way to figure out what the middle number is if we're dealing with 21 states, we take 21, we divide it by 2, that'll give us 10.5. And then because we got a fraction, we round up. The median is the 11th piece of data. By the way, let's say there was 20 pieces of data. If we get an even number, then it is the average of the 10th piece and the 11th piece. But if we get something 0.5, then we just round up. So we are looking for the 11th piece of data, right? Well, where is the 11th piece of data? This is data 1 through 4. This is data 5 through 8, 9, 10, and then 11 is in 15. Right? Now, like I said, the way people constantly get this wrong is they just go, okay, it's between here, or it's one of those, or they just like end up doing something like that, right? Now, this one's a little bit more noticeable because you would end up having to average them, and that's not one of the answer choices. So they actually make your life a little bit more easy, a little bit easier rather, but like, trust me, please, 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 you will get these wrong if you forget. All right, 23. As part of an experiment, a ball was dropped and allowed to bounce repeatedly off the ground until it came to a rest. The graph above represents the relationship between time elapsed and after the ball was dropped and the height of the ball after it was dropped. After it was dropped, how many times did the ball have a height of 2 feet? Now, one thing to note, it didn't ask how many times did it have a height of 2 feet after it started bouncing. It's just after it was dropped. So that is 1, 2, 3. Yeah, for the people who put 2, I've seen students get this wrong because they in their mind, they add, in their like just inside, like they just add this qualification that it had to be off of a bounce that the question does not have. All right, we're just going to skip to 25. Some value, because this is a more important question. Some values in the linear function f are shown in the table above. What is f of 3, right? Okay, so this is, so an x f of x chart is an fy chart, right? Now, I'm going to show you, it's a little bit of a longer way of doing this, but it is a test concept that comes up all the time. If you know this test concept, you will get points. You can always treat XY charts as coordinate pairs, right? So we have 3 coordinate pairs that are on a line. So we can get the equation of that line. We only needed 2. So what are our coordinate pairs? There is 0, -2, and there is 2, 4, right? So here is how you build an equation from 2 points. Now, there are shortcuts in this one. I'm not going to do the shortcuts because I want to make sure you know how to do it generally, because most of these problems do not have the shortcuts available that this problem does. So first thing we do, here is how you get the equation of a line from 2 points. Step 1, find the slope. So that's just going to be change in y over change in x, which in this case is 4 minus -2 over 2 minus 0, 6 over 2, 3. Cool. Our slope is 3. All right, now rewrite the equation. You have y is equal to 3x plus b. Now, what are x, y in this equation? It is literally any point on that line. Just pick a point on the line, and then that will, pick a point on the line, and then plug that point in, and you can just solve for b. Now, like, yes, b is the y-intercept, and this literally just tells us that that is the y, that this is the y-intercept, but like, for the purposes of questions where they do not make your life that easy, let's say we were plugging in 2 and 4. So then you would have 4 is equal to 6, actually, 4 is equal to 3 times 2 plus b. 4 is equal to 6 plus b. B is equal to -2. Right? We already knew that, but I just wanted to make sure you get this concept because I have seen them test this concept like 5 times on one of the most recent tests. Like on the last test we got, some context. This is practice test 6. Practice test 25 is like kind of where we are. They asked this question like 5 times legitimately. So if you really want to make sure you have that concept down, which is why every time we get to it, I go over it again. All right. So 27 is a good question. I'm going to tell you guys how to do it real briefly, but we definitely do not have time for me to go over it. The equation of a circle is this you absolutely need to know. Yeah, sure, no problem. It is, here is my email address. I'm just dropping it in the chat. There you go. Jason. Yeah, so I just dropped it in the chat. I know this is going up on YouTube, so I'm not going to say it aloud because I do not want random people emailing me 3 years from now. But that's my email. It's in the chat. Oh, I have only been sending that to attendees. Here is my email. There's my email. So in the plane, so what's going on here? The equation of a circle is x minus h squared times y minus k, bad tutor. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to the radius squared, right? That's the equation of the circle. Here, hk is the center, and r, not r squared, r is the radius, right? So here, this is saying what is the radius of a circle? Well, somehow we need to make this look like this, right? Now, this is kind of tricky, and they've asked this particular question 3 or 4 times over the years, so it's worth knowing. But the way you would do this is so first thing you want to do is I would just divide everything by 2. Like, let's just get rid of the coefficients on those. So you'd have x squared minus 3x then plus y minus, plus y squared plus y is equal to 45 over 2. Now, here's what you need to do to actually solve this. You need to group your x terms, group your y terms, and complete the square twice. Completing the square twice will collapse the x side into an x minus h squared, right? Now, I'm not going to go, we have 1 minute left. I absolutely do not have time to show you how to complete the square. If one of you is curious, I can show that to you next lesson. Please email me. All right. So that's our lesson. It's 12 now. Thank you all for coming. And everyone stayed here to the end. That makes my heart feel warm. All right, so homework for next week. Whatever your English teacher gave you, do the math section. My email is in the chat. If you want to go over any specific type of question or any concept, just email me. All right. You all have a great day.
Okay, so thanks for watching, and please remember to contact us at info@embracetutoring.com to set up any personalized private tutoring sessions you would like. Stay tuned for future videos, and best of luck with your studies. We definitely encourage you to visit our Instagram as well as TikTok pages if you have any questions along the way. Take care, guys. Best of luck with your studies.